Hey guys, welcome back to Objects of Obsession. I'm Jon Pyzel, and today I'm going to talk with Matt George. He's a writer, he's been an actor, he's a surfer, first of all, and he has done a lot of things around the world with surfing and surf culture. He is a great storyteller and a really just interesting person overall. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right in. Matt George from Indonesia. Awesome. Matt George, coming at us live from, where are you right now?
I'm in my little cottage on the beach in Kuta, and it's a beautiful day here in Bali. And yeah, I've been here for, almost 16 years now, living here permanently in Bali, and it's been a real adventure. It's been an incredible time here over these years, being involved in, I think, the most unique surfing community on the face of the earth. And one of the things that's kept me involved, which is, something that I don't think teenagers would understand, is that what's kept me involved is that I have always maintained publishing a magazine here. It's called Surf Time Magazine. It's actually a physical magazine. I think I've got one right here. Let me show the crowd here. So I actually publish, a magazine.
And I love that.
What's so interesting, John, about it is that from the very beginning, I wanted to tell, for the first time, the story of Bali and Indonesia from the Indonesian point of view, not as a visitor. Most people treat Bali like a prostitute. They show up, they have a good time, they pay up, and they split. Now, all the features that you see throughout history in magazines, not so much on, and even online, I'd have to say, is from a perspective of outside looking in. So I've been very lucky to be able to be inside looking out at this extraordinary culture that you and I know very well.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love that when I go there and I walk into a surf shop and I see your magazines, and it's always just like, oh wow, that's still happening. Like, we still have, like, Mike Latronic is still doing Free Surf magazine here in Hawaii, and then now there's, you know how few magazines there are in America. You're wearing a Trax Mag shirt right now.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Luke Kennedy is awesome. I'm super stoked. Yeah. He's a great writer, I think, and also. Yes. Does a great job with that magazine now, which is really cool to see, and he's real passionate about it, and seeing him carry that on is it's pretty awesome.
And then of course you have the great Sean Doherty down there with Surfing World magazine. That's and right. There's something still special about a magazine. Obviously this is a tourist island. Mike Latronic is on a tourist island that allows a magazine, and then of course Australia's surfing culture is so embedded in their every waking day, because everybody lives on the coast, that you can still have a magazine. There's something really special about them. I don't think they're fossilized yet. I think they're more like our cave paintings. When you lay down a magazine, they're forever, and you can collect them and look back, and it's like a library, really. I think that in places like Bali, with a vital surf culture like this, they're important. And let's not forget Surf Europe and Carve. They're all around the world, John. They're still being published. Surfer's Journal, of course.
I have piles of, I can't throw these away. My wife's like, "What are you gonna do with all these magazines?" I'm like, "Keep them forever."
Well, you have to understand, it's like those cave paintings. These magazines, particularly for someone of my vintage, tells the story of my life. And there's another thing too. These things are power objects because they are they're a focused element of our lives. Wow, here is a magazine all about what I love and what I do, and it's mine. It's not some post on some website that the whole world can have. Everybody has it.
That's literally physically yours.
This is physically mine. I can meditate with it. I can sit down and read it. I can consider it. And the other thing that I think is really important to surfing performance, and this is where a guy like you comes in with your shaping, is to stop everybody. let's stop for a second, okay? With all these clips of everybody in the trampoline park jumping around, all this crazy surfing going on, let's stop and look at an extraordinary surfing photograph. And let's look at the nuance and what the board is doing, and the almost ballet act of the surfer, like let's stop and look at what we're doing. And I think that's what's really special when people turn the magazine, any magazine, they open up and they see a really great photograph, whether it's giant chopu or a longboarder hanging 10, and you're able to stop and just go, oh wow, that it does exist. It's not just this barrage of clips and clips,
Well, let's go. We know we have a little idea of where you are right now. Let's go back the other way. Let's go back to the beginning, the Matt George story. Let's go back to where you started. Why do you care the way you care about what you feel about surfing and surf culture? What created that in you? Like, where did that all begin? How did that all happen?
Well, I
know that's a long story.
No. I can keep it brief, I think, because it's a very easy answer, okay? And I'll try to keep it brief. It was all because of Waikiki. And here's why. In 1967, my father was in the Navy, and he was something very unique at that age. He was a single father with 3 kids.
That's crazy.
And he was stationed at Pearl. No, my older sister, my older brother Sam, and myself. And I was 8 years old at the time. And he got stationed at Pearl Harbor there. And back then there was no such thing as daycare. So what he would do is he'd just drop us on the beach, pay the beach boys with a big case of Primo beer, and say, hey, these guys are great swimmers, just keep an eye on them. So Sam and I and my sister grew up that first summer on the beach at Waikiki. I was taught how to surf by Rabbit Kakai and Leroy Achoy, and we were such good skateboarders before that, and of course we were remarkable swimmers, that we took to the water very easily. And my brother and I never forgot, we were pushed into the wave at the same time, the first wave that we ever rode, at the same time on those big red boards. I think mine was number 23, and I forget Sam's number. And we stood up together and rode, and it was such a special moment because, we'd had, our family had broken up, we were alone with my father, we were, and we found something. We found something that gave us great joy to take us away from, the pain of the family breakup and all that, in 1967. So, and to be part of that Waikiki beach culture was remarkable. And it gave me a great gift, John, all my life. Ever since then, that moment, I had omerta. I was a made man. I've never had a problem in Hawaii. I've never had, when I brought my movies and my television show there, of course, I went straight to Brian Kealana and hired all the boys. And, I've always been a made man because of that 8-year-old boy that learned how to surf at Waikiki and Queens,
That is amazing.
Oh, I want to tell you one more thing. Do you know a surf spot called Kaiser's?
Of course.
Are you familiar with that in Waikiki?
Yeah, I've actually never surfed Kaiser's in my life. Unbelievable.
Well, it's a little barrel, it's a little barrel, and it in 1967, that beach was known as Fort DeRussy. And it was a military base, and so Kaiser's was off limits to anybody but military personnel for rest and recreation. Now, my brother and I had our military dependent ID cards, and we owned Kaiser's as little white boys. Can you imagine that?
That's crazy. Yeah,
so yes, Hawaii was very special to me, and it's why I've surfed all my life. Now, you asked me, why do I care so much? And it's a good question, and it's very easy to answer. I believe surfing is a very important activity on Earth. I don't think it's a pastime. I think it's an act of will, and I believe that jumping off the edge of the continent and playing in that zone that shapes the continents themselves. I think there's a very natural cosmic connection, and I believe that surfing is important. And part of the culture I see today is everybody pokes fun at it, whether it's beach grit or goofy contest criticisms or WSL criticisms or whatever it is. Everything's supposed to be downplayed and, it's goofy, it's just a meaningless activity. That is not true in my heart, and I have spent my entire life writing about it from that perspective.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that anybody that like is a true surfer that actually like there's a big difference between someone that surfs and someone that's a surfer, I think. And
Oh yes.
someone well, a lot of people have gone surfing or they go surfing sometimes, but the person that actually is a surfer is a whole different thing. And I feel like that is, and it's not like some great, go surfing, that's great. But people that are surfers are really definitely like connected to that, and they have something where they need to go surfing. They need to be a part of that. It's something that becomes pretty deep. I don't want to get
Well, a lot of it has to
but
do.
it does.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the secrets of the sea itself, which reveals this. The ocean reveals itself to us. Everyone else, goes down. If you don't surf, everyone goes to the shore to gaze out over the mystery of the sea, and we go down there. No mystery to me. I know the sea creatures. I know the power. I know what's going on. I can get in and out. I can survive it. I can be exhilarated with it. So that's something that when I try to compare it to other sports, it's very difficult for me to do so because, snowboarding, the mountain's not moving. Skateboarding, the cement's not moving. Everything is moving with us in this incredible power, and we don't measure our lives, by hours. We measure them by the powers of the tides and the celestial bodies that we, it's cosmic as far as I'm concerned.
It's literally cosmic.
Yes.
I always thought it's interesting. Like I grew up with my dad's a sailor, right? And so, like reading the ocean is something that's so, like I can't imagine looking at the ocean and not like seeing this current or watching the way the wind is hitting this and the direction and like just that awareness that you have from surfing your whole life. And it's something that sailors have too, where they see things, and then people that don't surf, they just see water. It's moving around a little bit. It's doing something.
Yes.
They don't see something that's like, oh, that's moving there, and this is causing that to do this.
It's fantastic that you say that,
Complex.
because it's great that you say that, John, because you're absolutely correct. If you read the books, the great accounts of great sailing, oh my God, they're like Bibles. The writers that are really sailors write about the same thing that a passionate surfer that writes about surfing. It's all about the wind and the stars and the waves and sailing. Yes, I would say is a 360-degree, totally involved sport and activity that also is very cosmic.
Yeah, and you're immersed in it. You're in your thing. It's not gonna, especially when you're like open ocean sailing. It's pretty different.
Well, that's what I think. I really believe that's what draws John to his sailing, because his sailing is so very, very serious. What he has done is quite extraordinary. In our history, there's been George Greenough sailed around in the morning light, that boat he built himself. There's been a couple lunatic surfers that have sailed to Hawaii from California to try to ride the big ones, and all this kind of stuff. But
one of my best friends,
John Florence, at this point is it has taken it to a very modern level, a very I can only say like an information age era where he's extraordinary in that he is expressing this incredible capability in the ocean that surfing gave him. Surfing allowed him to understand this, and to want to adventure and want to go beyond, off the wall and, beyond pipeline. He wanted to take it further. And I don't know, as a sailor myself from San Francisco, I am deeply impressed with John sailing. I will say that. It's bigger than people are giving it credit
Oh
for.
no, it's crazy. It's actually he just got back. He's here on a he's been in Fiji and then he's here for like a week here in Hawaii. And we
Mm.
were talking this morning, he called me and he was sending me some clips from some waves that he surfed over there and like he's getting insane waves and in the middle of he's like, "Yeah, I surfed this wave for 9 hours by myself today." Like like a perfect right with a double overhead right just firing and just like nobody anywhere around them. Not even just no one out in the water, but like nothing, no one there. You
Well,
know.
that's an interesting. This is a real interesting fantasy about, you know, I to surf alone in a perfect wave. I think that the dream of sailing around the world surfing perfect empty waves has always been there.
Yeah.
But I'd like to say something about surfing alone. I hate it. I mean, I need to be around friends, and I
It's
need to be with share it with someone, if even if it's a stranger, as I have. I've paddled out in strange places in Fiji long ago, and I'm all alone out there in this reef, and I'm just like, the dream. I'm like, well, first of all, I'm scared.
yeah.
Second of all, it. I once said when I was younger, and you know what? I think I still believe it. I'm so close to my brother Sam that I don't think any of my waves count unless he sees one.
That's pretty
You
fascinating.
know? I mean, it's so important. But I'm really stoked on the direction that John has gone. John Florence has gone after me observing so many professional surfers and being close to them and writing about them and stuff. I just love that John's on this hiatus that is extraordinary. Like, he's not taking his money and being a junkie. He's not taking his money and partying and throwing it away at all this. He's investing in adventure,
Yeah.
and I think you can hear in my voice how impressed I am.
Well, he's investing in adventure. He's also just like he's living his dreams that he want. Like he's like, I want to go surf and sail, and like that's amazing. And then he's getting to do it with his wife and his kid, and
And his
Eric.
brothers, and
Yeah, his
it's
brothers and his friend
incredible.
Eric, who works with him filming all the time, is with him a lot. And those guys, Eric's a great guy. Like they get along so well. He's like a. I was laughing. I'm like, your Darwin probably thinks Eric's like the other dad. Like he's with them so much.
Sure.
But they're like, it's cool. It's amazing what he's doing. He's really lucky to be able to have that opportunity, and I'm I'm happy for him that he's taking it, which is something I think that John's always done a really good job of choosing what is gonna not selfishly, but choosing what's gonna make him happy rather than choosing what like he people think he's supposed to be doing or has to do or
Yeah.
whatever. I think he's obviously his ability and like the titles that he's won even or whatever have like given him leverage or not leverage, but the ability to say no, right? Like to be able to say no is a really
Yeah.
special thing. It's something that a lot of people can't do in surfing. They can't say no. If a magazine says, "Hey, I want you to do this," or a film or whatever it is,
Yep.
I want this, I want this. They can't say no. Usually they're like, oh, I got to do this because it's my career.
Yes.
And he's put himself in a position where he can say no without it being a problem for him. And I think it's still something that's he still is generous enough to give us some of your surfing, give us some of this while you're not like on tour. Throw us. We want to see you surf, which is
Well,
cool.
which brings me to a point in that in his adventure that he is experiencing, he in many ways is not being selfish because he is giving the world something. He's giving the world inspiration, and the inspiration of being a capable sailor, of being able to seek a far horizon, of being able to be a father, of being able to be a good dad, a good husband. You and I have known so many surfing screwballs that have messed it all up, even though they're extraordinary surfers, but they're just screwballs. Here we've got what seems to be a very balanced man and I think that, quite frankly, I think he's giving a lot. I think he's giving a lot to the world with inspiration. I don't think. And what's interesting about that too, John, is this whole era that we're in of everyone being their own PR marketing company. The selfies and the clips and the YouTube channels and the whole thing. It really changed journalism. It made journalism in many ways very impersonal, and that's what's so special about John, because when you see everybody else, and I'm going to generalize here, you see everybody else, and it's they're all the same. I woke up, I took my ice bath, I had a great breakfast at the Sugar Shack, and then I had a great session, and then I did this and that, and then it's the day is over, and boy, I'm perfect, When
I'm gonna go do some crunches.
Yeah, there's the training, sorry, and all that, and then you get John, who is out on an adventure and sharing with it just enough, just sharing it with us just enough to where it's extraordinary. And then the other surfer that I'm really impressed with this is, of course, the great Kai Lenny. I mean, the greatest surfer that ever existed. This guy. It always angers me when they go, "Oh well, he's a multi-ocean athlete." I'm not. This guy's a surfer, mate. Okay, get that straight. He can surf anything and do anything and go anywhere. And, of course, inspired by the great Laird Hamilton, he's taken it, from propeller to jet, you know what I mean? And, oh my God.
That's a good way to put it.
That's another surfer that I pay homage to,
Yeah, Kai's a trip. He is a weapon. And he has the similar thing to John too, where they always want to get better. So they recognize it. They recognize their weakness and try to work on it. Like I remember a few years ago, Kai was just like, I don't really know exactly where he's at with it today, but like small waves, like shortboard, I want, okay, I got Jaws figured out. Now I want to figure out Waikiki. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not literally, but that kind of surf.
No, I get it.
Dialing it in and working with a coach, and he's had Doug Silva's coaching him, which is a whole, I don't know how well you know Doug. Doug's amazing. Yeah. Super funny. The speaking of all these surfers and these great surfers, one of the surfers that I always think of you and being connected to and through Santa Barbara. So our roots, we met in Santa Barbara, you and I, years and years ago. But your story in Santa Barbara with surfing goes back before me, and that's with the early days of Al Merrick.
Yes.
And then seeing Tom Curren growing up and becoming who he became.
Yes.
And that whole thing, and that was in the early, I would say that would be the late 70s,
early 80s. Early 80s, sure.
And early 80s, and I really started fully surfing. I didn't get completely into surfing until the early 80s myself, right?
Yes.
I was kind of late to surfing. I was in junior high when I was okay, I'm a surfer now. I surfed before that. Like I said before, I surfed, but I wasn't a surfer. And junior high, my dad and mom were divorced. My dad's house was 2 blocks up the street from Hammond's.
Yeah.
And as a teenage boy, I'd been living with my mom when I was younger, and I moved to my dad.
Right.
Boys kind of tend to do okay, I'm going to go live with my dad now. If you're in a divorced family, sometimes that's how it works out. I don't know. That's how it worked out with my family.
That's how it worked out for me.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden, I went from I surf sometimes to I live right up the street. I can walk down to the beach and go surf. And all my friends that I met from there forward are still some of my very closest friends.
Oh, yes.
And they were all surfers. And my house was the closest house of our group of friends to the beach. And so my dad's house became the
It became a headquarters.
That's where everybody left their boards. That's where your wetsuits were in the backyard. That's where you went after school. That's where you went on the weekend. And so that was a switch in my life for sure. And that was it coincided with a El Nino winter.
I remember it well. And you seem to forget, John. You seem to forget that I helped, you might not remember this, but I helped you actually learn how to surf. I've actually pushed you into a few waves.
I believe it.
Okay, so, you and I go way back to Santa Barbara, and I'll tell you about my relate. It was an incredible scene, and I'll tell you why. And a great way to catch up on all this is to get Jimmy Medico's new book, Shaping Surf History. Like, he tells that era, fantastically. And with his
amazing notes
photograph.
right here, which,
Yeah,
as you can
yeah,
clearly read,
yeah, sure.
say right here,
Sure.
Jimmy Medico and crew, Dana McCorkle, Josh,
Sure.
Josh,
Josh Klein.
Josh
Don't
Klein,
forget
Dana McCorkle,
Matt
Gabe
Mondragon.
Ortega, Matt Mondragon, and Timmy Smalley.
Okay, Timmy Smalley, who Tom Curren once said, Tom Curren and I were sitting on the beach after session it, or sitting on the rocks there at Rincon, the whole thing, and we watched Timmy Smalley surf a wave in his prime. And Tommy looked at me and goes, "That guy's better than I am."
Yeah, Timmy was gnarly.
He was such a good surfer. I mean, he had that gift. Now, you wanted to ask me about my relationship with Tommy, which was very close. My brother Sam and I were like, I'd say we were like older brothers. Of course, we were his ride to the beach. And we were really excited to be professional surfers, Sam and I.
Right.
And we were involved in the the California Thruster. We were really involved with Al with that. I have some classic photographs of myself and my brother Sam. I think he got the first California Thruster, and we were developing it with Al, and it was so exciting. And the first time I saw Tommy surf.
One quick question. How did you get connected to the Al in the first place? Like, Al was not even a known entity really as far as shaping went at that point, except within Santa Barbara, I would say, right?
Okay, I'll try to keep the story short.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious.
Sam George and I were northern and central California surfers.
Right.
Sam was a West Coast champion. I wasn't so competitive, but he was a remarkable competitor, and he was a West Coast champion. And so when we were after our college experience, I'll just call it that, in San Luis Obispo, we would always drive down to Rincon when it was breaking. And after our college experience, Sam and I, who were both very, very close, were really excited to be professional surfers. And Sam just said, "You know what? We got to go to Santa Barbara. The waves are perfect, and it's a hot spot of, performance surfing, and that's where we have to live." All right. So I packed up and with Sam, and we went straight to Santa Barbara and literally walked into Channel Island Surf Shop and said, "Here we are."
That one was on Lower State, not Lower State. It was like up above.
It was on Lower State
by the train station.
And the manager, the manager, he was
Kim Robinson.
Kim Robinson. We just walked in and said, "Here we are, right? Where's this Al Merrick character?
We're ready to rip."
Yeah, and so we went to Al, and we had our Central Coast boards. You got to understand, my brother Sam and I was deeply influenced by this. Was really into design at this point. We'd already been to Australia. We'd done these incredible things. Sam was a team rider for McCoy. Then
he had some surfboard experience. He had seen.
Oh yeah,
he boards from different places in the world, not just like this little town.
No, we weren't like little local shaper guys. We had McCoys early on, and then we had Phil Usher, and we had Gold Coast boards, and we brought a lot of experience to Santa Barbara as surfers that had already been on the tour, of what it was back then. And we'd been to Australia and South Africa and all these incredible places. And we brought that to Santa Barbara. And you guys became, in many ways, our little brothers, if you remember. And we were driving around, going to these extraordinary spots. And since we were being paid to surf, we had the time to really explore the Santa Barbara perfection and the ranch and all that.
On a side note, just to be clear, everyone out there listening to this, Santa Barbara only gets good for about 7 days a year.
But if you know how to work it, Like Tommy and I, Sam,
You drive either way, you're gonna score.
come on, from Murphy's to Point Conception. Now think about it.
Lots of,
Ventura, all
yeah,
that stuff. We'd go to Ventura twice a day. I mean, Dane Reynolds has made a living surfing a beach break at the end
that's
of his
crazy,
street.
huh?
You know what I mean? So here's the thing. So we were very, very active driving around with Tommy and Jimmy Medico as he was photographing it, and Al Merrick, and very close to Tommy and his family, and watching Tommy grow up. I remember when Sam and I'm trying to remember. I think it might have been Hammonds, might have been Rincon. Tommy took off on a wave, and Sam just looked at me and goes, "He's going to be a world champion." And this is when he was like, I don't know, 13 or something. He goes, he'll be, he's got it, And that early design days with the twin fin, because the Mark Richards influence, and Al Merrick's California twin fin for Tommy, and then the thruster, of course, created, something interesting that people with Tommy call the double pump bottom turn, which I don't believe that's what it is. I think it was misnamed. Tommy's great influence
It's like
was
a
cutting
fade
back.
and then a bottom turn. It's not a ta-ta. It's a
Yeah,
lift and
it's
that.
he doesn't tack at all. Tommy's great innovation was cutting back while going vertical. We call that a carve now. But when he did it, remember, you and I would go up and hit the lip, hit the lip like this. Tommy would bottom turn, which made it look like a double bottom turn, and he'd go vertical, and then he'd get into position of cutback while he was going vertical, and he'd actually do a cutback, a 180-degree cutback on the top of the wave, and the spray was so symmetrical and so like a filigree that's what started blowing people's minds, was that cutback going vertical. We call it a carve now. Ethan Ewing's a master of it and all that. But you can trace that all back to Tommy
Yeah,
going to a place on a wave that no one else was going. And
right.
it created a career.
It doesn't sound so like, whoa, mind-blowing now, but at that time, if you compare it to everybody else's surfing, it was pretty phenomenal. And
Well, think about it.
it's still a thing of beauty,
Think
right?
about that, think about how different that was. That realm of being in a crouch, going up the face, wound up and ready, pressure on the back foot, and looking at a 180 degree. No one could do it. I mean, it was incredible. So the whole Tommy experience, being close to his family, surfing with him all that time, traveling in Australia with him, being with him when he won world titles, and ran away from the media every time he won a world title, and Jesus, Matt, we got to get out of here, they're coming at me. All right, hop in, and we drive away. I remember when he won at Bell's, it's a funny story. He came up the stairs and he walked up to me and he just goes, I think I just won another world title. And I went, yeah, Tom, you did, with that heat, winning that heat. You won another world title. And he looked left and right and goes, can we get out of here? And I said, sure, Tommy. Sure, mate.
Yeah. Now it's like there's 500 people at the beach. There's a freaking
Mate.
come to the interview tent, do this. Yeah,
Incredible.
I love that. I feel like that John Nunn's definitely got he's got a lot of that in him, and he is like he actually like works to kind of like okay,
Well,
I need to give my time right here, but like I think that's his thinking, is like, let's get out of here. I'm done.
Well, think about it. Think about it this way as well. You mentioned earlier that Santa Barbara is only good 7 days a week, 7 days a year. Do you remember when we were there? That run of swell with El Nino. I mean, Rincon was a steady diet.
That was normal. I thought that was normal.
So did I. I thought
the worst year to ever really become a surfer was that year, because it was like, oh, it just like I don't even check the surf. I just walk down to the beach with my board or go I'm going surfing.
No, I didn't check the surf. Rincon was a daily diet.
For sure.
It was just unbelievable. And there was 2 years of that, and that coincided with the rise of Tommy Curren.
Yes.
Jimmy Medico photographing it all. Sam and I being there, all you young guys coming up, it was a remarkable time, and I would like to really suggest that everybody get Jimmy Medico's beautiful book that explains the whole thing, Shaping Surf History, and it's all there.
Yeah, it's insane. The
Wait! I want to say one more thing, John. Sorry.
No,
Remember, you and I were there. You and I were there at the pit. Okay, remember at the pit at the Semana Nautica contest.
That blows my mind. There used to be contests at the pit. And
Yeah.
Anytime I go to the pit, I just go, "Are you kidding me?"
No,
There'd be a
but hang on a
contest.
second. Let's
Yeah.
not forget that the pit experienced the very first air ever done
Oh, with Davy Smith.
with Davy Smith. You and I were right there on the beach watching.
Great.
It was you and I and David Puu, and we were there, and we just went, "What is he doing out there? What is Davy doing out?" Amazing.
I'll tell you this. I have a funny, not a highlight of my amateur. Well, it's all I had was an amateur surfing. Not a career. Surfing in contests as a kid. One of my highlights, in a really strange way, was beating Davy Smith at a contest. This is even weirder than the pit, at Santa Claus Lane, in like Santa Claus Lane. And I beat Davy Smith, and I was just like, "Fuck yeah!" Fucking
Wow.
Davy Smith, dude. Like, if anybody's gonna rip a waist high wave to pieces, it's Davy Smith, and like somehow I beat him, and it was
Right.
not.
And of all places, Santa Claus Lane,
Yeah.
which was part of our heritage, John. That Santa Barbara scene. We had waves, and we
It's
were Sam and I were adults at the time, but you guys were growing into your surfing bodies. You were developing your style, and we had a fountainhead of the best surfboards in the world, as many as we wanted from Al Merrick. And and what was incredible of that, I was just recently talking to Matt Biolas, who's a head in the WSL and all that, and I asked him, what is the greatest surfboard ever made? And he goes, well, you can go back to the Olos, and you can go back to all this. He goes, but the greatest, in my opinion, was Al Merrick's California Thruster. He goes, that was Tommy, Kelly, Rob Machado. He goes, that was the board.
It's hard to put anything above that. And it's interesting too, because I was on the other program. I was with Matt Moore through all this.
Yeah,
right?
I remember.
First new board, and made my boards for years, and is still one of my great friends.
Oh,
and,
fantastic.
And he was overshadowed a lot by Al Merrick, just because of the way things were working out. Once Tommy was on board, that elevated him. Sean Thompson, actually, probably for Al, was the stepping stone that really elevated him above all the other shapers at that point.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was with Matt, and Matt was ultra talented, is still an ultra talented shaper, and an excellent surfer. Matt was literally.
I'm glad you said that. I was going to say Matt's a hot surfer.
Yeah, he would beat Al Merrick in any heat, any day.
Oh yeah, no, he was. Yeah, it was brutal. Yeah,
but it was a whole different thing. Like, Al had this like performance squad that was like, we're running at the beach, we're running heats, and Chuck Graham's yelling at us, and
sure,
we're all this, and then Matt was like rolling a doobie, and like
sure,
just had this.
Get out there and surf, man.
He had a killer Chumash Indian arrowhead that he found up at his property behind Rincon that day.
Exactly.
Look at this, and like it was just like these two, not opposing worlds, but definitely like completely different worlds. Like I remember,
they're a different universe.
Yeah, and like our crew was with Matt, and he made us great boards, and he was an amazing person for us too, and like and honestly, someone that like I've pretty much modeled my life the way it is today is kind of modeled unknowingly modeled on the way he lived his life, was to go surfing, right? That was what Matt was about. He was a shaper, but he was a surfer, and Al was a shaper. Al was a surfer too, but like Al was like, I'm gonna elevate these people's surfing. I think that was the different kind of mentality.
I've been around a lot of shapers, and I've been around a lot of shapers, including yourself. And I'll tell you what, the
Unfortunately for you.
the fu- that's not true at all. You and I actually co-designed a board. I'll get back to that. But um, the um, the focus. I'm glad you brought this up because Matt Moore was important to this era. He was very important because not everyone could ride Al Merrick's. Not every he couldn't shape enough. Remember, this is before CADs. This is before shaping machines. These were hand shaped Stradivarius, and so not everybody could ride them. Those Matt Moore boards that he was producing were peers. They were a peer to Al's shaping, without doubt. He just wasn't. He didn't have Ron Machado, Kelly Slater, Tom Curren, and Al was. Let me get back to my point. Having been around a lot of shapers, the focus and the passion that Al really had when it came to giving the best surfers in the world the best board he possibly could. I mean, being in that shaping room with him, he had a halo around his head like Jesus Christ to us because he was there, man. He was right there. I've never seen focus like that, not even with DHD or who it's another incredible shaper, but
Absolutely.
That era of no machines where shapers were shapers. Now you guys can be designers, and the boards have elevated through these computers. They've elevated to this just incredible refinement and beauty. But back then, just mowing foam
I think
for the best surfers in the world. I think Al Merrick was a real focus, man.
it was that sort of work is work, right? It's
Oh
like
yeah,
it's like, oh cool, I'm shaping boards for this guy. You're like, I'm gonna go in here and put in some man hours and like
oh
you're
yeah,
doing work. Like your back is sore, like you're burnt out, like you're
yeah,
tired. It's freaking exhausting. And even like the hand shaping that I've done, like I've probably hand shaped 2,000 board, not even 2,000 boards in my life.
yeah,
Before I
yeah,
got on the machine, I hand shaped for years, but I wasn't like ultra productive. So I shaped for a long time hand shaping, but I didn't just, I wasn't doing production shaping, right? To do, even for me, to do 4 hand shapes in a day was like, wow, this is a lot. Like it just,
yeah.
that, it took it out of me mentally and like physically. And to put in that stuff that back then, it wasn't just like, yeah, man, I'm just gonna scrub these out. It was like you were giving a lot of yourself, is what I'm saying. You
Oh,
were
without question. It was.
physically, emotionally, and like mentally. You're giving a lot to your surfers.
Yeah, it was blood on the tracks, and also, Al Merrick had a true paternal love for his writers.
I can
Okay,
see that.
he wasn't doing it for money or fame. He was not. That was not his motivation. I've often asked myself, what was Al's motivation for that incredible passion and what he was doing? And I think that he had a far more technical mind than people realize. It might even have been more technical than creative, because
Yeah,
he was a master of taking feedback and then putting his own idea into it with precision. I think he had the mind almost of an engineer or a boatwright, like a boat builder.
yeah.
There was something in that, but he wasn't doing it for money or fame. Like he would, Tommy, when we were at the wave pool, 1986 wave pool
Oh,
contest
yeah,
in
yeah.
Pennsylvania,
Yeah. Didn't
and
Tom
Tom
Merrill win?
and Tommy paddles out. Tommy Curren paddles out, and he comes in. And he goes, "This board won't float in fresh water." Al Merrick shaped glass, put the fins on himself, and shipped a board there. And Tommy got it the next day.
That's fucking wild.
I mean, this is how passionate and
And
how
that's
much
in
love.
1980. That's not like Amazon
85.
delivery shit these days. You know what I mean? Like that's
It
powerful.
was 1985, the most hilarious surfing contest in history in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Incredible. We were all there. Amazing.
Terrible.
So, design is something that I've always been involved in. My brother, Sam, of course, is very influential. I mean, when you think Sam and Dave Parmenter created the whole mid-length revolution,
That's
with the
wild.
stub vector,
Yeah.
inspired by two things. I'd let them talk about it, but inspired by um, Rick Newcombe's belly board that he wrote at the Wedge called the Stub Vector, and then they combined that with like the Michael Peterson cutback look, and Dave Parmenter takes that. Sam was his test pilot, and my those oh my God! I mean, they gave birth to the mid-length surfboard, and I'm
Dave's a
so.
really good shaper.
Oh, he's one of the most unrecognized, incredible surfers in the history of mankind, Dave Parmenter. But so I've been involved in and around incredible design all my life. Like I'll tell you that I was there in 1981 at Bell's Beach when it was 20 foot, and here comes Simon Anderson walking down the beach with a towel over the back of his board. And we're all like, and I was on, I don't know, I think I was on a Lance Collins twin fin or something. And he, yeah, you can imagine. And he
Shit.
what? And we're going, what's Simon doing with that towel? And he got to the edge of the surf, and he took the towel off, and his board had three fins on it. And I remember, I think I was standing with, standing with Sean Thompson and the photographer, the famous photographer guy. Hang on. And we just looked at each other and looked at his board, and I said, what do you think? And the photographer, I'll remember his name, but he goes, oh, that'll never work.
Yeah. Yeah. That guy's regretting those words. What do you think about what do you think about surfers like understanding their equipment? Do you think that's a huge asset, or do you think that's something like I think today there's like a whole spectrum of surfers from guys that like know their equipment so well, like I know John does, I know someone like Mick Fanning does, obviously Kelly, but like I feel like there's guys that just don't really know anything, and then they still kind of either they just kind of count on their shaper, or they can rip, like what
But
do you
but
think?
this is but hang on a second. You've just answered your own question, John, and it's this. You can be a good surfer and you can rip, but if you want to be great, you better have an intimate relationship with your shaper and you better know what's going on. Line them up. Tom Curren, incredible feedback, okay? The best. Matt Viola said Tom Curren was probably the best test pilot in history, okay? Then you've got Kelly Slater. I don't have to tell you about him, okay? You got Rob Machado, all these guys. That's the greatness, is the greatness is the partnership. And it's the Holy Trinity, It's the shaper, the surfer, and the board that they're working on. That is the Holy Trinity. And the greats are really involved in design that works. Like you and John, obviously the Ghost works. Obviously the Power Tiger. Obviously, these things, they work, okay? Because you guys are intimately involved, and he is one of the greats because of it. Now you can get all these guys on the tour. I know a lot of them just, give me a board, yeah, pretty, they rip, but they're not great. Ethan Ewing is DHD, right? He
Yeah.
is in the shaping room at DHD all day long. That's all they talk about. You know what I mean? And it's been that way since the early days of. Well, we don't have to talk about the early days going back to Dick Brewer or further back like Bob McTavish, George Greeno. But let's just. I believe you answered your own question, and I hope that any
I kind of
surfer.
heard it as I was saying who I was naming. I was like, oh yeah, those guys have all won like world titles. They're all
Every
like
one of them.
Gabe Medina. I don't know what his surfboard IQ is, but I know that he works with one shaper to really get to where he is.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you two surfers that I've had. I didn't have a lot of contact with Andy Irons, right? But I heard that he was in the shaping room, man. Now I've spent a little bit of time with Bruce, and pretty much anytime I've briefly talked to Bruce Irons, we talk about design. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
it's unbelievable. I mean,
that's cool.
you think these like these rock and roll wild
I
guys.
thought the answer was going to be about Bruce.
You know what I mean? No. Bruce is he's into design, man. And look at
That's it.
look at the way he surfed. There were many waves Bruce had ridden better than his brother. I mean,
Yeah.
Those two right there, the Bruce
They're psycho
and
talented
Andy,
for sure.
wow, you know.
Yeah.
So CJ Hobgood, another world title champion, really into design. Corey
Really
Lopez, you know, one of the most underrated surfers on earth. Corey Lopez, you know, Andy Iron's sparring partner, really into design. Those are the greats, John, you know, and I
Yeah.
think you're very fortunate to be able to have access to a great surfer, not just someone who rips.
Oh, for sure. It's a yeah, it's amazing to have that and to just be yeah, connected to that stuff and that's like I mean, John called me today and like I was talking to you about earlier and like we had a 45-minute conversation not about exactly surfboard design, but about ideas for surfboard construction to make a board
Oh wow.
to not break, to do these different things. Like it wasn't. He was talking about how like oh after I rode a board for 3 months, and then I switched to on this trip. He's like I rode a board I was riding all the time for 3 months, and then I just grabbed a new one out of the bag that's the same board essentially. I mean they're never the same, but
I
another
got you.
version of that board. And he's like and just the fresh board was just like boom wow this is amazing. And he's like how can we keep that like what can we do to build a board so we keep that feeling longer, you know? And he obviously in 3 months of using a surfboard is going to put a lot more miles on it than like the normal person in 3 months.
Yeah, you're
But
going to have fatigue. The board will fatigue, just like an aircraft. You know,
right.
it's going to happen. You know.
But he's
Um,
just he's obsessed with that. Like he's like I was just reading about like carbon. Like my boat's made out of carbon, and it's gonna reflex back to where it started 1,000 times more than a board made out of fiberglass.
yeah.
Or a boat made out of fiberglass versus carbon, you know, or whatever. Just interesting.
So
That
is he talking about? Is he talking about? He wants a board with longevity.
he wants a board, but he wants the board to feel just like his boards feel now when they're new.
Yeah.
But he wants them to keep feeling like that. He doesn't want
Sure.
them to
So
feel
he
different.
wants a board with longevity. One of the things about surfers, because of our passion is so deep, is we always want a new board. You know,
I know. That's what
I get a new board. You know,
Yeah. Who wants to have the same board for 5 years? I don't. But
yeah.
you know, I mean, I do understand that's something that's definitely a more sustainable surfboard if you have a surfboard that lasts 5 years or 10 years or 12 years and feels the same as the day you got it. But,
Well, I mean, for the
but are you
common
gonna want that in 12 years, you know?
Well, for the common surfer or the single mother who's buying surfboards for for her kid, I
Yeah.
mean, longevity, I think
My window real quick. 1 sec.
sure. I
here.
think longevity is a great subject to discuss, and of course, with composite materials, there's always been the flex problem. You know,
Yes.
is it
That's
too
exactly-
stiff? How do we get
That's
it to
exactly what we're
flex?
talking about. I'm like, I can make you a board that will feel the same for a long, long time, but it won't feel good. It won't feel the same in the beginning. It'll feel weird to you. It won't feel
Yeah.
good. It'll be, you know. I explained to him, he was talking about flex and stuff too, and I'm like, well, he's like, if we build a board certain ways, we could make it more rigid and it would be less likely to break. And I'm like, but you have to remember. And then we were talking about a particular board that he had that was a small board that was made out of carbon. That was he's like it just had no drive. A normal one, a PU version of that board has great drive, feels great. And I'm like, well, remember this. You're loading up a board too. When you do a bottom turn, you don't really. It's not noticeable visually, but like you're loading up and springing off of that.
Yeah.
It's like a bow and arrow. It's like an arrow, a bow. And I'm
Yeah.
like, imagine trying to use a 2x4 as a bow. It doesn't work. That's when you make a board super rigid, you're trying to shoot an arrow with a 2x4. It's not going to work, right? And he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, there's been a lot of attempts with carbon, and I'll tell you an idea I have for carbon. Okay, I think we need to build the ultimate air board. Okay, the for doing airs. The enemy of airs is gravity. Okay, that's the enemy. So what I want to do is get a composite board, you know, carbon composite or some exotic composite, and make it really thick. And of all people, I've talked to Christian Fletcher about this, and he's stoked.
Somehow I knew his name was coming.
Yeah, so Christian Fletcher, he's stoked on this idea. We want to make this really thicker, super thin, like NASA level thing, and fill it with hydrogen gas. Now, we believe then that it would it could almost be negative weight. So you'd be walking down the beach with your board like a balloon on the end of the leash, right? Okay, hang on. Okay, it's crazy, but to come up with something where a board was 6 ounces. Now, I don't know, man. I mean, it could add some height.
Yeah.
I know that the body mass is a question here, but still, some crazy ideas. I was very much influenced by the shortboard revolution. I went through from '67, all the way through the longboard to shortboard revolution, and it was a really exciting time with crazy thoughts. And I hope now that the Pro Tour is like F1. Everyone is riding the exact same board. It's just, is the engine better? Everyone's on a, say, 6-foot thruster, let's say, or a 5'10" thruster.
There's these small increments of difference. Right?
And they're all basically on the same boards, and it's just who's got the better engine? Who can take this machine that's very similar to everybody else's and go through the track, the same. So I would like to see some real wild experimentation. I'd love to see it with fin development and composite materials and crazy designs. Like, I believe, I've always wanted to talk to Kai Lenny about underwater surfing because he's mastered above water. And I want him to go underwater. And we've all body surfed underwater in a wave, right? Well, imagine building something with an air supply where you could get into that energy of that wave.
Ride that wave underneath.
Like a dolphin. And you're in there, you're in your little machine just going, oh, this is unreal. Or dropping in at Jaws, completely safe because you're underneath. I think Kai Lenny would. You know what? I'm going to call him. I think this would interest him.
I'm in if we can surf Jaws completely safe. I'm all in. Let's do it. That brings me to. What that makes me think about a little bit is, I remember. We're gonna switch topics into a little.
Sure.
I'm gonna go a little in God's hands for you for a second.
Sure.
Because the one thing that I love most about In God's Hands isn't the movie itself, but was a day that I walked down to the beach at Backyards and Phantoms was pumping.
Yep.
And I watched something I had never seen before, and it was Todd Chesser.
Yeah.
Stunt doubling for you, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I saw him. Whoa, hey, my dog's growling down here. I saw Todd. I got a dog sitting by my feet.
Good.
I saw Todd come from behind the peak at Phantoms before it was breaking, get whipped in, and come up and do a carving turn in the peak of a 20-foot, 25-foot face wave. And like where you would be trying to paddle into it, he was just going, raw. And then I just remember walking down and going, holy shit.
Yeah.
That was insane. And it wasn't like crazy big wave surfing. It was very, very big, but it was performance surfing. And it was mind blowing.
No, he was special. And I tell you what's really, and the reason I'll always be thankful for him is when we were making In God's Hands the film, Maddie and I and Shane were all doing all our own surfing. I've got to tell you the Honolulu Bay story, but anyway, we're all doing our own surfing. And when we got to the North Shore, I realized at that point I was, late, 40 or something. And I looked out at this surf and I just said, I'm not up for this. I can't surf, 10 foot off the wall.
Find another guy, please.
Yeah, I can't find off the wall, or I can't, we got to find someone else that's going to surf giant North Shore for me, because I'm not up to it. Okay. So all of a sudden it was Matty Liu that just goes, well, just go ask Todd. He looks just like you. And I went, what? So we went over to Todd. I'll never forget it. And I'm like, Todd, you got to do this. Right? He'd already shaved his head. Remember? Yeah. It was that era. Yeah. Okay. And we were exactly the same height. We had the exact same build. And he picked up my board and he goes, this looks really nice. I said, yeah, man. So he took that out. He took that out on those at off the wall or something or wherever it was, and it was big and just closing out. And Shane was ripping, Maddie was ripping, and he went out there, and you cannot tell the difference between him and me. You cannot.
Except in the turns he was doing.
Well, the one thing you know how funny he was. He looked me up and down when I asked him, and he goes, "Am I going to have to shave my breasts?" But he was very very special. I'll tell you something. I want to tell you a quick story of In God's Hands. One of my favorites. There's so many. I got to write a book about it someday. But we were at Honolulu Bay, and we needed to shoot, and it was perfect, and it was absolutely jammed. And I don't want to name any names.
What year was this?
1996.
1996?
Yeah, we were making it in 96. It came out in 98. This might have been 97. I'm up on the hill with Jerry Lopez and Victor Lopez and the whole crew. And we're overlooking the thing. And someone, I'm not going to name who, says, "I know how to get all those people out of the water." Yeah, and I'm not going to name this person. He goes, "Yeah, you got any money?" And I said, "Yeah, we got some production money here." He goes, "All right, give me some money." So he gave me some money. He came back an hour later with like a bale of weed. And he goes, "Hang on." He goes, "Hang on." And he paddles out in the lineup and he goes, "Hey guys, they want to do this stupid movie filming here with these guys. And what they've got is up in that truck there. You can just grab handfuls of weed if you want it. If you just want to, if you just want to give us a place for 45 minutes, okay?" Everyone came in, even the bodyboarders. They all came in and they're just mowing into this Maui Wowie. Meanwhile, for 5 hours, Matt George, Matty Liu, and Shane Dorian had Honolulu Bay to ourselves. Okay?
That's amazing. I love
and
it.
there was a, sorry, I have a little tropical cough, but listen.
No worries.
There was a photo.
You didn't hit that. You didn't hit that bail a little bit in there.
There was a photo of us three at perfect Honolulu Bay, of us in the lineup as the sun was going down, and I showed it to Billy Hamilton, who was one of the very first people to ever surf Honolulu Bay. And he goes, "Where's this?" I said, "Well, it's Honolulu Bay." And he goes, "What?" He goes, "I haven't seen it like that since the 60s. I just went, "Mate."
That's so sick.
It was great. In God's Hands was, I think it was certainly one of the greatest times of my life. To be able to travel around the world, surfing perfect waves with each other with my best friends. It's, say what you will about the greatest disaster film ever made, In God's Hands, but
I'm not going to read any reviews. I won't read any critics' reviews of it for you right now, but I loved it.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's going to be like Big Wednesday, where Big Wednesday, when it first came out, flopped, but now In God's Hands is well. I'll tell you one of the most interesting things about In God's Hands is the fact that the whole thing was about jet ski or not to tow in or not to tow in, and there's that really romantic moment between Shane and I when we were in the lineup. We were in the lineup shooting.
There was a lot of romantic feeling moments between
Oh,
you.
yeah. We loved each other. We were friends that loved each other, man. I have no shame there. And Shane and I are filming it at Jaws in the water, where I say, "It can be done, You can paddle into these waves. You could do it, right?" And look what Shane did.
Ironically,
Years later, after the movie, he put the jet ski away. And Mickey's prophecy came true. So I found that really, I'm quite proud of that, actually, that we expressed that in that movie.
You might have put a little something in Shane's head right there.
And one more thing about that movie, and I don't say this in defense, it is easily the greatest surfing that has ever been in any Hollywood movie ever, because we did our own surfing.
For sure.
And it spent a lot of time on screen surfing. There's Brian Kailana, Shane, the Rush Randall guys, the Pete Cabrinas, the heavyweights. Derek Dorner, Shane Dorian, me, Matty Liu. You know when you watch those Hollywood movies and the hero takes off in a wetsuit in Ventura going right, and then you go to the crowd and you come back and he's a blonde-haired guy at Pipeline going left as a goofy foot.
In a Speedo.
Yeah, in a Speedo, and you're just like, oh my God. So I not being defensive, In God's Hands has the greatest surfing footage. I don't think it will ever be equaled.
It was.
And remember,
like I said, when I walked down, I was literally tripping on Todd Chesser, just absolutely destroying 20-foot face phantoms on a.
Well, and remember when we were over at Jaws, if you look at the footage, no vests. The skis were those old round lake models that had no. Listen. They had bicycle handlebars. There was no sleds.
It's the same ski they have. It's the same ski they have at Candida Resort.
There you go. No sled. Okay. No vests. No, barely safety protocol. And that day, those 2 days we surfed that. Me, Shane, and Maddie, and Kaylon and that whole crew. When we were out there, the whole strapped crew, it was 60 foot. You look at the footage. It was fucking Jesus Christ, unbelievable. So anyway, I can talk about In God's Hands all day. It's a lot of fun.
Well, what about?
I wanted to draw attention to two things, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Okay. This is my new book.
Oh, perfect. I was, you're on the weird little out of focus thing there.
Oh yeah, no, I put my background out of focus. I don't know how to fix that, but it doesn't matter. Anyway.
Just hold the book right in front of your face. Hold it in front of your face.
There it is.
No, put it on your chest. Do it like this.
Got it.
There. I looked. Yeah, there you go. That book, Matt George, indeed.
Yep.
I was looking for my copy today at my house. I couldn't find it. I have it somewhere. I read the whole book already. You're like, I got to get your book. I already bought it, and it's great. I love. It's you know what I really love is there's a few things, but my next question was going to be how did you transition into writing and surfing? We'll get back into that in a sec. But
okay,
the thing that just speaking on that book in particular is you have always been an incredible storyteller. That is your superpower for sure. You could turn the most boring situation into like, this is incredible. Of course. I believe we got out of there alive. I thought we weren't going to survive, but really we were just like in some bar somewhere and nothing was really that dangerous. But you said this guy had a knife, he's going to protect us and we're all good. So I trusted in you.
Yes.
But your stories are excellent. Your writing is incredible. And I'm a big reader and like I read books, tons of books. And
great.
I'll stop reading a book even if I like it, if I can't stand the person's writing, like I'm a particularly whatever. One thing I particularly like about your book is I like also having these like short little slices of different stuff is really nice sometimes.
Yes.
Rather than like, okay, I'm going to open this book. It's 275 pages long. I'm going to find out what happens in the last page or whatever.
Yeah.
Having these different experiences broken up into these shorter chunks of stuff is really, to me, it's really appealing sometimes. And it's really like, it's something you could just open up anytime and like, oh, I'm just going to open to this page right here and read this story. You don't have to read it.
It's my greatest published work throughout my career. It's the greatest stories of all my published work over 35 years. And that's where you get this, that's where you get the, it's called In Deep, because it was embedded. And it has a foreword by a very little known surfer, as you know. Not many people are familiar with the guy that wrote the foreword. He won 11 world titles, but I'll leave it at that. But
shares your hair.
What this thing is great. This is 500 pages. So some people get it and go, I'm supposed to read this? No. You put it in your bathroom, because you can open up and read these magazine articles accompanied with the photos that I've taken, the very intimate photos of these situations. And it's a very modern book because you don't have to have a long attention span. And they're about a lot of stories about all the greats. I mean, there's some, you've read it, there's some wild stuff in there, man.
It's amazing, and it covers you so much.
Pardon me.
Jeez, you all right?
Come on.
You've experienced so much through your lifetime and being involved in these. It's amazing the people that you've been around and the people that have opened up to you and allowed you not access like in a rock star kind of way or whatever, but just like emotional access to them and like sharing experiences and doing things with you, and it's pretty incredible. And
Well, here's how that all happened.
but it takes trust, right? It takes trust where they're like, hey, I'm gonna trust Matt because he has integrity and he cares about what he's doing. He's passionate about it all, and that shows in how you write, and that also shows in the people that allow you to write about them or be a part of that. And so my before I started talking about this was my question to you, right? I mean, whatever, you don't have to answer it like a question, whatever. But how did you start writing? Like you already said, well, my college experience, like you clearly didn't go to like.
No, I'll tell you.
You're not like you didn't come to writing.
No, I'm totally self-educated. You got to understand. I dropped out of high school at 16.
Yeah.
I got a junior college degree, in the absolute least amount of effort I possibly could, and I, forget college. Nobody's ever taught me anything. I mean, I was, I think a lot of it has to do with Irish blood, and my mother was a writer, a talented writer, and we were all very talented storytellers, and so we grew up as like, with Irish blood, we had this Irish storytelling thing about us. Now, when it comes to the surfing world, again, I was very, very lucky to get into these intimate situations for two reasons. One, I had been on tour. I was a professional surfer. I was, involved in design evolution. And people knew this, so that when I stopped my professional surfing career and walked into Surfer Magazine and said, you're going to pay me to travel around the world and I'll cover the surfing scene globally. And they just went, great, we're looking for someone like you.
Wow, that's cool.
And this is how it happened.
Now someone's making loud noises out there. Okay, sorry, I'm back.
So I was born.
What year was that?
I was born with an ability. I believe I was born with an ability to tell a story because I'm so passionate about them, and to love people. And that's why I was able to get so close to these people. Like when I lived on the commune, Shane Horan's commune, I had a 5-day rule. I had a 5-day rule. When surfers said, hey, you got to do a story on Keala Kennelly, I said, well, as you know my 5-day rule, I will not do a story or a profile on someone unless I can live with them for 5 days. I'm not going to meet them in a cafe and turn on the recorder and talk to them for 15 minutes. That's not happening. I want to know their mother's maiden name. I want to know who they are. I want to know what's going on. I lived with Mark Occhilupo. I lived with Shane Horan. I lived with Keala. I lived with Lane Beachley. I lived with Tommy. All these stories is because my 5-day rule. I'm going to live with you. I've slept on a lot of couches. I slept on Occhilupo's couch, a lot of couches. It wasn't easy, John. What I did was not easy. It was. I spent a lot of time with these people, and the trust came from the fact that I had once been one of them, and they knew that. I was on the tour. I did the thing. I'd surfed all the great waves. We had some memories together, and so I wasn't like a cub reporter that sat at the feet of Kelly Slater with a pen and paper going, hey Kelly, tell us a story. It wasn't that at all. It was always, hey, remember when we were in Texas? And that, it's that kind of thing.
It was more of a peer situation than a...
It was very much a peer situation. And yes, I was an eccentric storyteller. You could say I was eccentric. I was brash and bold and opinionated and all that. And I think surfers have always respected someone like that. And so to answer your question, that trust came from the fact that I insisted on living with them if I was going to do a profile, and the fact that I had once been one of them, so they knew I understood.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. Like, it's pretty rare to be able to get into that like that.
I think one more thing, and I'll just say it out loud, and it may sound self-aggrandizing, but I'm going to say it anyway. I don't look like a journalist, you know. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm built like a
More like
surfer.
a undercover.
Yeah, I look like a boxer, you know.
You're the
And
only
so,
guy. You're the only guy I know that is constantly wearing black jeans, boots, and a black T-shirt in Indonesia at all times.
that's very true. Okay, so I don't look like a journo, you know, some guy, you know, like creeping around trying to get the story. And I think that really helped too, was the fact that I didn't look like a journalist, and I think that was part of it too.
Yeah, I believe you. So what
Hey,
year?
can I?
Go
Go
ahead.
on.
What? What?
I was going to mention, and this is a plug for my brother's new book, Sam George's new book.
You've got all the books.
Yeah, called Child of Storms.
Child of
And
Storms.
this
What's
is
that
my
about?
brother's. This is my brother's memoir. It's very different than my book. These are very personal memoir stories of his. And as you know, Sam's probably written more about surfing than, well, he certainly has written more about surfing than anybody ever in history. And, you know, you can get the bundle. Go to Amazon and get the George bundle, right?
Push here. Hit the button here.
What's
All
that?
right. The George Brothers bundle. Hit.
Yeah, get Sam and my book together. And
Where is Sam today?
Sam has an incredible story, and I got to keep it really short. He is in Whidbey Island, Washington.
Oh wow.
He retired from his house in Malibu, and him and his lady moved up to Whidbey Island, Washington, and now he is a travel surfer. And him and Jerry go Jerry Lopez and Bend, Oregon is close. Him and Jerry are tight, you know, and they snowboard and they plan to Costa Rica. Yeah, he's still surfing all over the place, but he's got out of the madness, and he's up on Whidbey Island in Washington and creating quite a sensation up there and surfing ferry wakes and he's, you know, of course he's a stand-up maestro, you know,
Right.
and so the stand-up world and he was just in a very famous wildlife photograph just by accident. He was out on his he was out on his Tahitian outrigger, his racing canoe,
Yeah, one man.
and orcas were like diving and jumping, and some wildlife photographer took a shot, and now he's famous again, you know.
That's crazy.
And
Awesome.
Sam's doing really well. He's up there. He's real happy. He travels a lot, surfs, still making movies, still making moves.
Awesome.
And I'm really proud of his new book. It's both these books are very, very. They're not what you're expecting from books about surfing. But enough about the books. So,
Yeah. So you know, I feel like your book isn't really a book about surfing. It's about people.
yeah,
And
very
that's,
much
I
so.
find that way more interesting than surfing. Telling somebody about surfing and reading about surfing to me is not very. It's you can only go so far with that, but the people in surfing is to me. It's always been the interesting thing. That's why I want to do things like this. Is like I
Yes.
think that the people in surfing are what makes surfing interesting. You know what I mean?
It's our tribe, John. You know, it's our tribe. It's connected. It's given you and I an international community. It's given you and I Bali. You know, it's given us Indonesia. Surfing has handed us Indonesia on a plate. You know, and it's handed us good friends and great times and laughter. And I think it's just been a fantastic at this stage of my life. Just this wonderful, adventurous life that surfing can give you.
I agree. Every one of my close friends is through surfing. Every single one of them, and that maybe says I'm a little bit shallow and that I'm only a surfer, but
I don't
that's
think that's shallow.
my lifetime of friendships and like even to this day new friends, and you know they almost all of them come through surfing somehow. It's interesting. But what about what's something like when you look back at your writing, what is like what's the one piece that you've written that you feel like summarizes your or
That
is just
can
a favorite
define
ever, you know?
the one thing, the one that defines me. I've been asked that question, and it confuses me a little bit. I want to go. I wish I could just say this one, but it's the ones where I wrote about people. You just talked about it, like, I did 3 profiles on Tommy Curren. The first one and the last one I did were 30 years apart.
That's cool. Yeah.
Like, so
that's pretty cool.
I would say, you know what? I'm going to say the Tom Curren profile I did, the last one when he was in Bali, I would say that one, because it was really about a deep love and friendship, and reflecting back on a life that we both led in different parallel universes. So I would say that. There was also one, strangely enough, on one of the greatest shapers that ever existed, Alan Byrne.
I was hoping you were going to say his name.
Yeah, Alan Byrne was, we grew close. I was late getting to know him.
In Indo, you met him?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we just reached each other because he's a great storyteller as well, and we just really touched each other's hearts, in a storytelling way, and we just got each other. And I ended up in the shaping room with him, and I've got some classic photographs iconic photographs of him and his boards, those incredible rocket boards that he'd make, the Allen Bird channel bottoms, and that story. What was it called? The Life and Death and Life of Alan Byrne. I'm very proud of that story because you discover so many things about Alan that you never knew. Number one, he was a pipe master. Nobody knew that. Number two, he was picked by the New Zealand Air Force to become an astronaut. That's
in your book.
It's in my book. Yeah, it's incredible. It's like. to discover these incredible things about people. So, okay, the Tom Curren one and the Alan Byrne one, but I have to mention Keala Kennelly. Keala Kennelly's story was absolutely extraordinary. She opened up her life to me. I lived in her apartment with her up in Manoa Valley there, and she was just such a remarkable human being to me. What she went through and what she was up against, coming from Kauai, coming from Kauai, the only female surfer on earth that could say she actually beat Andy in a contest, by the way, and in a little amateur junior contest.
Yeah.
And her honesty and everything, and it was one of the most difficult times for me, because when I wrote that story, she was so open about her lifestyle that I was open in my story about her orientation, her sensual orientation, right? Yeah. And she got so mad at me because the story came out, and she goes, "Matt, I haven't told my family yet that I am, same sex person, and I went, oh my God, you were so open with me."
You outed her to the world?
I outed her to the world without her permission, and it was so horrible. And God, she was angry at me, and I was upset for years because we were friends. And then finally, we met at Uluwatu by chance, and she told me, "Look, I forgive you, but in the end, Matt, it's the only mistake I ever made in my whole career, John." But she goes, "In the end, it was time for me to tell my family," and it brought my family and I closer. That's awesome. And she goes, "And it also got me a TV series." So I said, "Okay."
Also, I'll buy you dinner.
Yeah. So I said, "Okay," and we hugged it out, and I just have such deep respect. When people say, "What stories should I read in the book?" I go after the Lane Beachley story, the Keala story, the Stephanie story, and they go, "Wait, is is this a book about female surfers? I'm like, oh, sorry. I just, I think they're really neat, So, yeah, that Keala incident where it's the only mistake I ever made. And I'm glad it worked out for her, and I love her, and I will be eternally impressed with Keala Kenley, how she faced challenges and overcame them.
Yeah, she had a tough upbringing.
Very tough go.
Yeah, she's gnarly.
Isn't it interesting how many surfers have had a tough childhood? You, me, divorces and all that. Kelly, Andy. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. And now we're almost in a generation of all pro surfers have helicopter parents, and it's a different kind of difficulty because their parents are on them. Aaron Brooks and the Colapinto brothers. Like their parents are on this. You know what I mean? Like what?
They're involved.
Wow.
It's funny. I was just my daughter. Like you met Rocky, our granddaughter.
Fantastic.
Daughter, yeah, Rocky, and Indy just sent me this funny thing the other day. She's like, all right, like there's a style of parenting right now, and for the last probably 10 years, that's called, I don't even know what it's called, but it's basically like being really nice. You don't really...
Right, I've read about it, right, yeah.
I forget what they call it. I don't even know. But she's like, we're switching to fuck around and find out parenting.
Yeah, exactly.
Like this isn't working. Like her kid is a angel and like just the most amazing kid, but like at night where she won't sleep or like you put her down, she just wants like love all the time, which is like we want to give her love all the time too, so it's not really a problem. But when you're like, okay, we need to like be able to live our lives a little too and do all this stuff, So it's funny, but yeah, parenting. And that sort of parenting style shows through in kids these days too, where they're like, "Oh, you said no to me, or you did," there's definitely some.
It's reflected in the surfing world. I mean, when you look at, it's reflected in the surfing world. Like you watch, what is it, Drive to Survive? I think it is about F1.
Yeah.
And these guys all seem like a bunch of pansies. You know what I mean? Like. They just do, and I'm hoping that our F1 surfers always keep that edge that a surfer has always had, very separate from normal society. I hope that we always have characters. I hope we always have our clown princes. I hope we always have our wild childs like Chris Ward, and I hope we really keep that surfing thing, and then we don't all become like F1 drivers and we're totally isolated. No one can talk to us. All we know about them are those deplorable post-heat interviews, on the WSL. That's all we ever get to hear them say, and they've got their hat scrunched down and they've got their sponsor sunglasses on and they quack like ducks, and you're just like, who is this person? I don't even know what you look like, like what do you look like? You know what I mean? So I don't know. I hope we get back to a more intimate surfing world where surfing was all about knowing our heroes and being able to even be in the surf with them, I hope we can get back to that.
I feel like just what I said about your writing, like how reading about surfing isn't really interesting, right? I don't want to hear like, oh, and then he turned through the lip and did, like blah, blah, blah. I don't care, right? I can watch surfing. I love that. But I feel like in a sense that professional surfing is missing that part of it as well, right? Where they are I'll just say the WSL, put it on them because let's use them as that's professional surfing. You're in the WSL, you're in the CT or whatever level, and I feel like they've I don't want to say failed. It's not like they don't have to do it, but they have not shown the surfers as people the way that they should. I think there's so many stories to tell. There's so much more to them than riding the exercise bike and warming up and then saying like, yeah, I had fun. Yeah. I had really fun. Went out there. It was a little slow, but then the tide kind of came in and then, you know what I mean? Like,
Jesus.
How's that hat?
Ah, yes. Yeah, that's it.
Got
That's
that
my
from
Jon Pyzel.
Alex. Alex, mom gave me this because I
That's fantastic. No, I
made some.
understand what you're saying. And
You
then
know,
on,
they've
on the
missed
other
that.
hand, on the other hand, I would like to say in defense of the WSL because you and I have been around. I've been a card-carrying member of the IPS, the ASP, and the WSL. And even though I've been banned from all contest sites with the WSL, I
Except
will say,
except for the Pidan Cup, which
well,
which
no, the Don Cup's mine. It's all mine. So anyway,
coming for
what I
that.
want to say is the WSL. When you think of all the times that we've been on the beach with pro surfing, where the checks have bounced and people have broken pencils and pieces of paper writing down scores, and how amateur it all was, I mean, you got to respect the guys that busted down the door, that created this surfing thing. But all of a sudden, the WSL comes along with a bunch of money, and look what they do. Those broadcasts are incredible. There
Incredible.
was nothing like that. Yes, they have a problem with commentary. Yes, we don't know who these surfers are. But the way it's structured, it's as good as any F1 event.
For sure.
It's unbelievable.
Absolutely.
If they, I just think they have a staffing problem that could be fixed very easily, and a better way to get to know our surfers. But now it's like Drive to Survive. We don't know Lando. We don't know Verstappen. We don't know who are these people. You know what I mean? Like
That's what I want. That's to me.
exactly.
That's how I admire what you do. Is like you get into the heart of these people that we've seen from the outside for years and years and years, our whole lives even.
Yes.
And you have a way of peeling off some of these layers and getting into that. And I really appreciate that. And I think it's really, to me, that is much better than so many
Well,
different things that you could see.
I
And so many
think
ways. But why can't somebody, I think it would be a worthwhile thing for the WSL to go and produce some little side things, give a little 2-minute piece on who this person
Sure.
is, spend 3 minutes and tell us who the hell is Connor O'Leary, who just won the J-Bay contest, the goofy
I have
footer.
no idea. I have no idea.
I've known that kid since he's a little kid, but like most people have no clue who the hell that guy is. They're like, they see him over there and da-da-da. Like, tell us about these guys. Make us want to know these things. And that's, just like you said, they do an incredible job presenting the contest, showing
Yes.
the replays, the slow
Oh,
motion
it's incredible.
breakdown of it all is unbelievable, and it's
Incredible.
free, and
Yeah.
it's all free, right? We have to sit through
Yeah.
2 minutes of commercials and whatever,
Yeah.
but where they lack is filling in that other empty space of who are these people we're watching.
I
Beyond-
agree. I agree with you, and that's why, in many ways, these cave paintings that I talk about these, to get beyond the clips and to get beyond that, I guess it's. I agree with you 100%. One of the things that's humorous to me, being Irish, is that could you have a more Irish name than Connor O'Leary, and yet you surf for Japan? I'm like,
and
look,
you're Australian.
yeah,
And
you're Australian.
No, he's
I'd like to figure this out. No, honestly, because
Australian. Yeah.
let's just say, hang on. Let's
Yeah,
just
too.
say,
I like Colin.
let's just say I'm a Japanese surfer that has strived all my life, gone as hard as I can, done the whole thing. The Olympic team gets put together, and some Australian Irish guy from Wollongong gets the spot on. What about? I'm Japanese.
Yeah, right.
I thought I was going to the Olympics.
Yeah,
It's
it's
some
insane.
Irish guy from Australia. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
it's
get it.
insane. Yeah, there's something confusing there. What about where, like, I feel like you have just been like, you are like a student, but yet a professor in the culture of surfing. Like you,
Thank you. Yes, thank you. That's a great description. Yes.
right? Like you're always learning about it and you're always teaching about it.
Yes.
You're passing it along, you're carrying it with you and sharing it with other people. And I think that role is so important. I feel like there's that the further we get from, like, I would almost even say like traditional media, magazines, etc., like we talked about in the beginning, the further we get away from that, and the more that we get towards like flicking through Instagram and getting your 15-second fix and watching a guy ride a half of a wave because you're already bored and you go to the next thing. Right? Like you don't even watch
it's the whole
horrible.
It's so horrible.
He's halfway through a cutback. Yeah. What else? Who else is ripping? Is somebody doing an air on this next page?
Yeah.
So, but I really admire you for like contributing to our culture. And I was talking with Vince.
Vince Longo.
Yeah, Vince Longo. I just spoke with him the other day, like I told you. And one thing that I said to him, and I'll say it to you, is I'm really grateful to be like a part of surfing. It's not just like I surf, I'm a surfer, I make surfboards. Like I'm a part of it.
Oh yeah.
And I've contributed to other people surfing. I guess that's what makes me a part of it in my mind. It's like,
of course,
I've helped or let or whatever. I get to be a part of other people surfing, and so that makes me a part of like the surfing experience globally or universally.
I would say certainly, John.
It's so cool. But what you're doing is so significant in keeping the culture alive and passing it on. And I think your book, and I'm not trying to plug your book here, but I think that's super important to me. Like I feel, I don't know how many kids read these days, if they actually pick up books and read, but like read a book, kids. Like it's amazing. Books are the best thing. And like when you're getting on a plane, make sure you have a book in your backpack, in your bag that you're carrying on there, because your phone battery might die. You never know. You might get desperate.
Well, you know what? I really thank you for that.
It might not work. The books always work. It never dies.
Well, listen, I really thank you for that. We've been talking for an hour and a half. I'm going to go.
Okay.
But I just want to let you know something. I've really enjoyed this. And what you're talking about is what we talked about at the very beginning. The cave paintings of our history. They've got to be written down. They've got to be photographed. It's got to be more than forgotten posts on Instagram. And I would like to say directly to surfers in this podcast to really look to who you are. Look to who you are and try to really express that beyond, a goofy Instagram clip or something, or a post-heat interview. Like try to really let the world know what you are as a surfer. I still publish a magazine, for crying out loud, and I've got more books on the way, and all this sort of thing. And I'd just like to spread that message of know who you are through the great skill of storytelling, particularly when you tell your own story. So I'd just like to say good luck to everybody out there, and keep surfing and keep storytelling alive.
You are a master storyteller, I'll tell you. I love it.
All right.
Thanks so
Hey,
much.
John, the next time, like next year when we do another one of these things, let's talk all about design, because I'm really into that.
Yeah, that's another hour and a half.
Yeah.
We can do part 2. I got a lot of questions still.
Okay, we'll do part 2 sometime. I'm open to it. As long as the audience wants it, okay.
The people want this.
Right.
Thank you so
All right, well,
much.
take care and keep shaping, and stay on the cutting edge, man. You're right on the cutting edge, and I think that I'm really, really happy that you and John have such a great relationship, because, I mean, he is one of the greats, and in many ways you got him there with those boards and your friendship that you've had for your life, and what he's doing out there on the great surfing adventure. You're a big part of that. And stay right in the pocket, John. Stay right in the pocket. Okay?
I will be back in Bali in September. That's my plan. My shoulder surgery is coming back, and I'm paddling now, and I've got 1 month, and I should be able to surf is my goal. So.
Well, never forget, you mentioned that Matt Moore was a great surfer shaper. Let's not forget, John, you're a good surfer. You deserve to be out there.
Yeah, I love surfing, that's for sure. That's not stopping anytime soon.
All right.
All right, Matt.
All right, brother. Take care. Thank you so much. Goodbye, everybody, and take care.
Thanks for your time, Matt. I appreciate it.
All right, brother. See ya.